broadcasting in Kenya, you can trust KBC to bring you authentic news and programs to your living room. As KBC, we take pride in our unrivaled heritage as Kenya's trusted national broadcaster. Commanding over 92% digital television signal coverage of our country, 23 radio services that cut across our entire language spectrum, a national, regional and international digital presence backed by the most experienced and top-notch broadcast professionals in the industry.
A very good evening to you.
The new look Kenya Broadcasting Corporation is truly ahead of the pack. Turn to the mother of broadcasting in Kenya for stories that resonate with our identity, our aspirations as a people united in purpose. Real stories of hard work, of passion, of creativity, of big dreams. Stories that cement our nationhood. Stories that bring us together as one. We take pride in our shared heritage and destiny. KBC, informing, educating and entertaining Kenyans as one nation. KBC, Kenya's listening, Kenya's watching.
Unamuita nini hiyo jina gani?
Unaona ni kama amepunga kilemba.
Kilemba sasa
Alimulima yani kama shamba
na anajaribu kusaidia.
Wewe ulipofamiwa, yani uliona watu wanafanana. Mimi nauliza, nani anafanana na wewe? Watu wengi sana wanafanana.
Na kuuliza hizo ongea lugha ile nitaelewa.
Because the coming there, nimekogo kuja wachana nayo, pela kuichinga huko.
Good evening. Tonight, the Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces lays bare the vision of the Kenya Defence Forces and exactly why the military is involved in public service. We will be interviewing or talking to the Chief of Defence Forces, General Robert Kariuki Kibochi. Be sure to catch up with that interview.
The first one.
Yes.
First media interview.
First media interview.
Very first. Indeed, it is a broadcast that you do not want to miss. Do join us till the tail end of it. A lot we got lined up for you, including a warning from the Ministry of Health that there is a spike of the deadly Delta variant of the COVID-19. Why you need to watch out. That and much more coming up in our comprehensive news bulletin tonight. My name is Serfine Achieng Ouma.
And my name is John Jacob Kioria. But let's first have a look at the highlights.
At the moment, at least, the death rate, continues to be reasonably low, within the country, as opposed to what we are observing elsewhere in the world. But in terms of the spread, it is spreading faster than the other variants were spreading.
Kenya records highest COVID-19 infection cases in the month of July, just 2 days into the 2021 school calendar.
We're asking the herders who are in Laikipia illegally to leave Laikipia within the next 7 days. But while you are planning to leave within the next 7 days, we are preparing a crack operation.
Interior CS Fred Matiang'i issues a 7-day ultimatum for herders to leave Laikipia's private ranches or face forced evictions.
The idea really is to also transform the culture, the working culture, the ethics of the people that we are working with.
And ours is to restore discipline and order, but not to take over the public service, says Kenya's Chief of Defense Forces in an exclusive interview with KBC.
Do join us for that and much more, and please engage us on social media at KBC Channel 1. Use the hashtag Prime Edition. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Anne Wangeshi.
All right, let's begin the bulletin tonight with news that Kenya has recorded 1,006 new coronavirus cases in the last 24 hours, the highest this month out of 5,584 samples tested.
The new cases translate to a positivity rate of 18.0%, according to a statement from the Ministry of Health. In the same period, 13 people succumbed to the COVID-19 virus complication, bringing the cumulative death toll to 3,895.
All right, let's have a look at our story. 261 patients recovered from the disease, with 228 from various health facilities countrywide and 33 from the home-based isolation and care program. A total of 1,692,793 vaccines have so far been administered across the country.
19 Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe has warned of a surge in the spread of the deadly Delta variant of COVID-19 in the country.
While noting that the death toll is considerably low, Kagwe pointed out that the positivity rate has continuously remained as high as 14%.
Kagwe has warned Kenyans against attending political gatherings, which he says puts them at a greater risk of contracting the virus. Have a look. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe says political gatherings remain one of the greatest impediments in the war on COVID-19.
We are appealing to our political class to please be sensitive to the situation that is currently in play as far as Kenya is concerned. We are also asking the citizens that please avoid those political gatherings.
Kagwe says Kenya is staring at a possible surge in the deadly Delta variant.
At the moment, at least, the death rate, continues to be reasonably low, within the country, as opposed to what we are observing elsewhere in the world. But in terms of the spread, it is spreading faster than the other variants were spreading.
Kagwe's remarks coming even as the government weighs its options in the complex war on the global pandemic.
On the issue of the dusk to dawn curfew, our experts are still sitting down. They are still discussing and advising us on what should happen in the next 2 days in terms of extension or otherwise.
Kenya has partnered with the Intergovernmental Authority on Development to bolster its war on the virus in the counties.
IGAD is an organization of 8 member states who is working very closely in multi-sectorial sectors, specifically on this pandemic.
As one of the subnational governments in Kenya, we will take the lead to work closely with the national government and to work closely with IGAD.
Kenya has in the last 1 year adopted various technologies in the health sector. The newest among them is a simulation laboratory which offers practical experience to medical trainees in a simulated clinical environment.
The healthcare providers and students will be trained through this simulation laboratory will lead to an increased workforce in our country, in our county and national healthcare facilities, which will in turn enhance operation of specialized medical equipment for better service delivery.
The simulation laboratory we are launching today will undoubtedly go a long way in meeting this goal.
The laboratory includes a mock intensive care unit and operating theater in which routine and complex clinical cases can be performed under the guidance of our faculty.
The laboratory, which is based at the Kenya Medical Training College headquarters in Nairobi, will be utilized by all KMTC students in all campuses across the country.
All right, now from health matters to some security matters now, and the government has given herders who have invaded private ranches in Laikipia County 7 days to leave or face forceful eviction.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i, who has toured the county, said the government will not watch as herders invade private property and cause insecurity in the area.
The CS who spoke at Naibor Anti-Stock Theft Unit camp in Laikipia North Sub-County noted that the government would not sit back and watch as herders with hundreds of livestock destroy private property in search of pasture.
We're asking the herders who are in Laikipia illegally to leave Laikipia within the next 7 days. But while you are planning to leave within the next 7 days, we are preparing a crack operation. It will be merciless and it will be very firm. Tafadhali usipige nduru. Tumekuambia uondoke kwa hiari yako.
Matiang'i said a special unit of police officers and KDF will be stationed at Kirimon Reserve to block the herders from migrating from Isiolo and Samburu counties.
Karibu ekari 80,000 ya serikali imekuwa sasa kama ni playground ya ukorofi. We will move in and take over that property with immediate effect.
The CS noting that the government would work with county governments for an off-take program where herders are expected to sell their animals to the Kenya Meat Commission to reduce the number of animals during the dry spell and restock when the climate is favorable. He warned politicians against igniting violence towards the electioneering period.
Mwaeleze hivi, pole pole. We will not accept to hurt wananchi because of these political positions.
Nancy Okware, Prime Edition.
Let's now focus on Kajiado County. Police in the county have launched a manhunt for a man suspected to have killed his wife in Migingo area of Nonkopir village.
The body of Anjeri was found hidden under a bed in the couple's bedroom on Wednesday morning.
According to the deceased sister Mary Nyokabi, the couple had only reunited 2 months ago after they parted ways for over a year due to problems at home. Nyokabi says her brother-in-law, only identified as Chege, physically abused the mother of a 3-year-old son in the past.
Mimi nilikuwa naona Njeri hata alikuwa ameumia hata macho, akaniambia ni pikipiki, lakini mimi sikuamini ni pikipiki. Na hapo ndio alikuwa analia, anapenda ananishinda kuniambia ati twende. Nyokafi, mimi naweza taka kwenda kwa media. Nasikia niko na pressure. Mimi naona sina amani, nitafuta hata wenye wataniongelesha, watatuongelesha at least.
Nilikuwa nazuia vita mingi sana kwa sababu saa yote walikuwa nakuja kwangu, wananiita hapa, saa hii naamua, saa nyingine nawaambia mkikosana na bibi muachane, badala saa yote ni kupigana, kufanya mambo isiyofaa hata kidogo.
Confirming the incident, Senior Sub-County Police Commander George Chipkonga said detectives have launched a manhunt for the husband, considered to be the prime suspect in the murder.
From our first preliminary investigation, this is murder. This is murder. So, tumeangalia, and the suspect is the husband. This is tumeuliza pia tukaambiwa kwamba wamekuwa wakisosana kila wakati. So, kwa hiyo bwana hayuko sahi. Is at large. So we are looking for him.
The incident comes amid insecurity concerns in the Nonkopir area. Reporting for Prime Edition, my name is Yusuf Hilo.
Quite a sad story there.
Yeah, indeed.
The rise in the number of domestic violence cases in the country.
When love hurts. It's unfortunate this case is rising in the country. You know, somebody you trust and they turn against you and do something as hurtful as this. But we really hope that the police will expedite this matter as quick as possible so that, you know, justice can be found.
All right.
We're going to be taking a very short break right now, but remember there's still more lined up for you on the other side. A very important conversation coming up later, Kioria.
Definitely, the Chief of Defence Forces laying out bare the vision of the Kenya Defence Forces, and we've seen the involvement of, you know, the Kenya Defence Forces in public affairs, managing public affairs, and some have resorted to saying this is militarizing public service. And General Kibochi will be telling us whether that is militarizing closing, or what exactly it is. And that will be during that interview. So don't go too far. We'll come back after this short break.
The challenge, as I stand here today, is to restore this home for the tadpoles and give back to the children a world of beauty and wonder.
Kwa majina yangu naitwa Eriki, ama unaweza niita Mugaka. Mimi ni socha. Kazi yangu ni kuchunga mali ya wenyewe. Hakuna kitu uko uchungu sana kama mtu kupoteza, especially pesa ameweka kwa nyumba ama ofisini. Na hizo kesi ukuwa ngumu sana kufuatiliwa. Na waomba wenzangu, kama vile mimi ufanya, weka pesa yako kwa panga account juu KDIC imekuhakikishia iko safe. Weka kitu kwa panga.
Be sure, check out for a KDIC sticker in your banking hall. KDIC, protecting your deposits.
Haya! Mtumishi! Ala! Nissan Serena ndio hii. Na unaweza kuwa wewe ndio tunapikia simu. Kodi ya Nissan Serena ni NS. Alafu kisha kwenye amount ni 50 bob. Hii Nissan Serena tunakupatia na shilingi 50.
Kujiunga na QuickBid ni rahisi. Enda kwenye M-Pesa, bonyeza paybill kisha weka business number 4032353. Kwenye account weka kodi ya bidhaa unayotaka na bid yako ya chini zaidi. Kwa mfano TV 16. Kisha weka shilingi 20 tu kama idadi yako. Weka bid yako pia kwenye www.quickbid.co.ke. Kumbuka, bid ya chini zaidi ya kipekee ndio hununua. QuickBid, bidhaa bora kwa bei ya chini.
Chini ya uongozi wa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, uwekezaji katika mipango inayozisaidia biashara ndogo ndogo na za kadri umeongezeka, na hivyo basi kuunda nafasi zaidi za kazi. Wiki hii kwenye Project 254.
I wish to reiterate my commitment to the young people of this country. You are the most important agenda for me and my administration.
Nilipokuja Kirdi, niliona kazi imeanza kwenda haraka because the machines zilikuwa
wametuwekea machines. Sasa sisi kazi yetu ni kukuja na kuprocess Kirdi na kufanya product development na kuuza. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. Now let's cross over into the world of business. The number of passengers at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport plunged by 60% from 6.1 million in the 2019-2020 fiscal year to 2.5 million in the last financial year. Statistics from Kenya Airports Authority shows this is the lowest number of travelers at the facility in more than a decade.
Passenger numbers at the Moi International Airport in Mombasa declined by 45% from 1.1 million to 646,000 passengers. The drop is attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic that upended the global travel business. However, cargo volumes at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport expanded by 2% on the back increased shipments of fresh produce in the international market. Kenya Airports Authority results for 2020-2021 shows that the situation has improved in the last 6 months compared to a corresponding period in the 2020-21 fiscal year. At the JKIA hub, the number of passengers has increased to 285,000 from 7,000 in the corresponding period last year. Aircraft movements over the same period increased to 5,650 from 1,600. Cargo has also improved to 27.4% to stand at 28.2 million kilos recorded in the 6 months of June 2021. KAA says the improved cargo business at JKIA was supported by strong demand for fresh produce and other consumables in destination markets, as well as the conveyance of COVID-19 related supplies. For Prime Edition, I'm Brian Munyoki.
Waniuliza kuhusu gari badala kuniuliza mimi kama niko sawa.
Mbona basi na kuona unaenda kule uwanjani?
Hiyo si kazi yako.
Sikiza bwana, hapa jina lako mimi nitanisaidia. Uliza kila geti. Hapa pesa tu.
Kujua tatizo lake ni vipi? Ni tujue mwanzo ametokea wapi? Tujue alipotoka.
Tatizo liko hapo sasa.
Wewe unajua nakupenda. Liolo na liwe.
Mimi ni mjamzito.
This is where it all began. As the mother of broadcasting in Kenya, you can trust KBC to bring you authentic news and programs to your living room. As KBC, we take pride in our unrivaled heritage as Kenya's trusted national broadcaster. Commanding over 92% digital television signal coverage of our country, 23 radio services that cut across our entire language spectrum, a national, regional and international digital presence backed by the most experienced and top-notch broadcast professionals in the industry.
A very good evening to you.
The new look Kenya Broadcasting Corporation is truly ahead of the pack. Turn to the mother of broadcasting in Kenya for stories that resonate with our identity, our aspirations as a people united in purpose. Real stories of hard work, of passion, of creativity, of big dreams. Stories that cement our nationhood. Stories that bring us together as one. We take pride in our shared heritage and destiny. KBC, informing, educating and entertaining Kenyans as one nation. KBC, Kenya's listening, Kenya's watching.
Before we begin our interview tonight, let's do some sports. The national women volleyball team Malkia Strikers will be hoping to register their first win in the ongoing Tokyo Olympics in Japan when they take on world and European champions Serbia tomorrow. The beach volleyball team will also be in action and will come up against USA. And elsewhere, national women's rugby team Lionesses kick off their campaign against New Zealand.
Malkia Strikers got off to a losing start in the Olympic Games after going down to Japan in their Group A March opener after losing by 3 straight sets. Malkia, who are featuring in the Olympic Games for the second time, would then lose by the same margin against Korea, despite putting up a good fight in the second and third sets where they lost 25-22 and 26-24 respectively.
Ni small two mistakes they mefanya to lose the second and the third set, so we are going to work on it. I think the next matches we are coming strongly and we are coming to surprise.
The Paul Bitor coached side will now aim to register decent results against Serbia tomorrow before facing off against the Dominican Republic and Brazil.
Nafikiri kama tungepata ile nafasi ya kucheza ile international friendly matches kabla hatujakuja kwa hii competition ingekuwa mzuri zaidi, kwa sababu ukiangalia zile points za mwisho hatujakuwa kwa ile situation mara mingi au kwa muda mrefu kwa sababu tulikosa zile international friendly matches.
Also, 5,000 meters world champion Helen Obiri will be hoping to retain her title in Tokyo come Friday, but will be keen to seek glory in the 10,000 meters race.
What I can see that we have challenges from Ethiopians and from Serfine and from Netherlands, but I have no pressure. These are championships. It's anybody's race and anybody can win. At the end of the day, we have a winner.
On the other hand, 2014 Commonwealth 800 meters champion Eunice Sum will line up against compatriots Mary Mora and Emily Tuwei when the 800 meters heats kick off on Friday.
Prayer and my wish is to see Team Kenya perform much better than the other Olympics. It will be my great achievement to see them going home with more medals like than the previous one. Even in terms of basket, volleyballers and even rugby players.
To get Change Your Thinking Skizotune, dial star 811 star 961 hash.
When you change the quality of your thinking, you change the quality of your life. Sometimes instantly, just as positive words can make someone calm, smile or laugh, your thoughts will react to the world in real time. So, change the quality of your thinking.
Dial star 811 star 961 hash. Star 811 star 961 hash.
Kwa majina yangu naitwa Eriki, ama unaweza niita Mugaka. Mimi ni socha. Kazi yangu ni kuchunga mali ya wenyewe. Hakuna kitu uko uchungu sana kama mtu kupoteza, especially pesa ameweka kwa nyumba ama ofisini. Na hizo kesi ukuwa ngumu sana kufuatiliwa. Na waomba wenzangu, kama vile mimi ufanya, weka pesa yako kwa panga account juu KDIC imekuhakikishia iko safe. Weka kitu kwa panga.
Be sure, check out for a KDIC sticker in your banking hall. KDIC, protecting your deposits.
In the last 60 years, the bus rapid transit has become a popular mode of public transport in major cities around the world. In fact, more than 200 cities have embraced these mode of transport, and Nairobi is soon joining this class.
87% of our people who do not have individual cars, this is their value. And once unlocked for them, it will transform the quality of life.
This week on Inside Government, our focus will be on BRT. What are the prospects? What are the challenges and the opportunities? Right here on KBC Channel 1.
All right, welcome back to Prime Edition, and I think it's that time for the interview.
Yeah, for that great conversation with the Kenya's Chief of Defense Forces, Robert Kibochi. A lot indeed that you discussed with him, including even concerns by Kenyans that the government is militarizing public service. It's now time for you to find out what plans he has, and of course how he's going to be shedding light on some of the plans that you should be expecting from the Kenya Defense Forces going forward.
All right. All right, on Extra Mile tonight, we are talking to the Chief of Defense Forces, General Robert Kibochi, who is with us, and we'll be talking about the Kenya Defense Forces as well as his personal journey through the ranks of the military. First of all, Generali, karibu sana.
Asante.
I allow you probably to say hi to the viewers of KBC before we begin.
Nafurahi sana kuwa hapa na KBC. I'm very grateful that you could come over to get an interview from the CDF.
Yes.
And I'm sure we will have good discussions.
All right.
That will make probably your viewers understand KDF better.
All right.
Right.
And first of all, being the first interview with KBC, congratulations again on your session to the Chief of Defense Forces. But let's begin there. As a beginner, take us through the journey that you've gone through to rise to the rank of a Chief of Defense Forces in the Republic of Kenya.
It's a long journey. I don't think we can be able to cover it in a single interview, but I think I can shorten it. Joining the Kenya Defense Forces as a young cadet in 1979, after my running away from school in Form 5 at Nyeri High School. And I studied around Gilgil, and as you know, Gilgil has a lot of security forces, and particularly the military. A school called Kwelel High School that is located right inside one of the infantry battalions, the 5th Kenya Rifles. So obviously the socialization there was one that militarized every one of us, the boys' school. So I joined in 79, and obviously rose through the ranks from a young lieutenant to becoming obviously the commander of the Corps of Signals. Here we have various corps. Communications Corps is where I belong. So I served there as a commander, and then obviously rising through the ranks and getting to the rank of brigadier, coming here, working for General Karangi as a chief strategist and policy here for close to 3 years. And later on, I rose to the rank of Major General and became his assistant, Chief of Defense Forces, in charge of operations, plans, doctrine and training. And that is at the time that we were getting into Somalia. So obviously, I was responsible for operations planning and also ensuring that we are getting things right for him. Having done that, as you know, I also became the army commander after Elade, as you said, in 2015 we had the incident. Then 2016 I became the commander of the army, where I did a 2-year stint as a commander. And later on, moving forward, I became the vice chief of Defense Forces, serving under General Mwadere. And last year, I came to this position, and that's where we are, in a very, very summarized way.
You talk about dropping out in Form 5, and I'm here thinking it is a well-known fact that the general
not dropping out, running away.
Running away in Form 5.
Exactly.
It is a well-known fact that the general is a well-educated and trained person.
Yes.
Give us the nexus between rank.
The nexus between rank. I think what happened obviously is that after I joined the communications core is an information system core that provides communications and no communication systems and assets to the entire force. I got a scholarship to study in the UK, and I did a telecoms engineering program, a diploma course there. And then coming back on promotion to captain, I headed to India to do a degree in engineering, communications engineering. And obviously, with that degree, I was able to propel myself to do a master's program in the UK, University of Sunderland, in information systems. Now, having gotten to the level of a full colonel, I realized that I needed to move away from purely being an engineer. And when I got a chance to study at the National Defence College, I enrolled for a master's degree in international studies with the University of Nairobi. And obviously that became an area of interest for me because immediately completing this National Defence College, I got appointed by then General Kianga to head an institution that was upcoming, the International Peace Support Training Center based in Karen. And I got very interested in issues of conflict management. So later in life, when I was now a brigadier here, I enrolled for a PhD program, which I'm almost just completing.
All right.
And I'm looking at the role of conflict management, particularly by the collective security institutions within the Horn of Africa. And that's where we are, Kibochi the soldier and Kibochi the scholar.
All right.
Right.
Thank you very much. Let's get into the operations of the military and talk about the involvement of the military in what people call civilian duties. You're talking about the Nairobi Metropolitan Services.
Right.
You're talking about the Kenya Meat Commission.
Yeah.
First of all, why is the military involved in civilian work?
I think this is a question that has been coming up in many quarters, and I think it's important that you've asked it so that I can be able to elaborate why. First, and I think it's important to underscore that security and development are very much intricately related. And in fact, I think they are two sides of the same coin. Security can never flourish without development. Neither can you have development without security. There is a sense as well that if you read Article 241 of the Constitution, the article provides for the mandates of the Kenya Defence Forces, the Constitution, the 2010 Constitution. And it provides three parts under that particular article. The first part is that the Defence Forces is responsible for the defence and protection of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the country. And that is the reason we exist, to defend and protect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the country. But it goes further to say, under Part B of that particular article, that we shall assist and cooperate with other government authorities in areas that the government would want us to undertake. And the third part of that looks at us being able to be tasked to restore peace in any part of this country that has got challenges of security. Now, this Part B, which talks about shall assist and cooperate, provides us with a legal framework around which we can be able to work with other government agencies. For example, working with the Kenya Railways, for example, to restore the railway line from Nairobi here to Nanyuki, is part of that, is assisting the Kenya Railways to be able to actualize what they're supposed to do. Now, the issue is that the Kenya Defence Forces inherently has a huge reservoir of expertise across the entire spectrum, whether you're talking about engineering, whether you're talking about medical, marine engineering. And this is a resource that has been developed by the taxpayer like yourself. And therefore, there is a sense, therefore, that if this resource is available, why shouldn't it be used to develop activities that will benefit the Kenyan people? Now, this is exactly what has happened with us joining into the Kenya Meat Commission. Kenya Meat Commission is an area that probably somebody would say, what does the military got to do with the meat? But remember, what is happening out there is that the Kenya Meat Commission is not operating because the equipments are down. The management principles and processes are down. And therefore, when we got asked to do this job, we just brought a team of engineers, veterinary doctors that we have around here. We got a team of IT personnel to go and develop systems and processes for them. And within time, we were able to take it off the ground. Today, if you ask farmers who bring cattle, who used to bring cattle to the Kenya Meat Commission, they will tell you they've never been happy. Because on bringing their cattle at the site, they get to see how much the cattle weighs and how much they're supposed to be paid. And the farmer just goes home. Within 72 hours, he gets his money.
That is what is happening now.
That's what happened now.
All right.
Today, we are very happy as a security sector because all the meat and meat products that we are taking is coming from KMC. And this is itself very, very, very important because when you think about warfare and the need to securitize certain products, because anyone could use a meat product to contaminate the entire force. Now we are very, very, very sure that what is coming into our messes for the soldiers, whether you're talking about soldiers here, whether you're talking about the police at Kiganjo who are training, whether you're talking about the prisons officers, this is something we can trace to the Kenya Meat Commission. And I think even those that have worked there before, and because they're still there, are very happy about this. They can see something is working, something that has been dead for so many years. So that's the reason why we see ourselves being a part of the society. The military is part of the society, and therefore it should be utilized to support the people that we're supposed to defend.
It is important that I ask because when we look at the results from probably the Nairobi Metropolitan Services, the Kenya Meat Commission, even the rehabilitation of the railway and the port, there are visible results that are coming out of these processes. What is this that the military impacts in the character of the people you're engaging that ensures that we have such results coming out from minimal resources? Because if you compare the budget that would be used probably to even repair vehicles in Nairobi Metropolitan Services, you can't compare the repairs then and the repairs being done under NMS.
Absolutely. And I think it's important because when the Kenya Navy engineers were tasked to refurbish the MV Uhuru, MV Uhuru is a wagon ferry that was built in the 1950s. It's been down for close to over 20 years. They spent only 50 million shillings to revive it, while contractors were asking for 1.5 billion shillings. Now, the reason, in my view, is grounded on four areas. One is the whole question of discipline. And I think what ails most of the institutions that we have is lack of discipline, because discipline instills confidence in people. It instills a sense of belonging. And so that if you're managing a facility, you're managing it first of all, not because of your own personal interest, but looking at the bigger good, the larger good of the country. And I think that is an area to me that separates and puts apart Kenya Defence Forces from other institutions. Because discipline is instilled right when you join either as a recruit or a cadet officer. And that is the Bible that you take with you from that time to the time you leave this service. You cannot move away from that, because the challenge with that is that if you get away from discipline, then there is no way you can run a system of this nature. This is a system that works in teams. You start with a section, you come to a platoon, you come to a company, all the way to brigades, to formations. Now, if you don't have discipline amongst the people, then it becomes a challenge to actualize any mission. Secondly is integrity. And I think integrity is also something that is lacking to a large extent. And one of the challenges of lack of integrity in these institutions informs the way the management of resources is undertaken. The lack of trust, amongst the people that you work with. Because if you have integrity, you develop trust. And to us, trust is important. Trust is important to the extent that we work in teams. If I cannot trust you when we go for an operation, you might take off at the critical moment. So I have to have trust on you. And I think that's very important. The other thing is selfless commitment. Commitment to the cause. And selfless commitment is what has bound militaries that succeed. Because then you commit to a process that will not benefit you as an individual, but will benefit the larger good. And I think, to me, that is something that is critical. The fourth one, and I think most important, is the whole question of professionalism. Professionalism is a critical pillar here in the military, because you cannot be able to develop an institution if you don't develop the people on a regular basis. Therefore, training and education in the military is something that we take very, very seriously, because the environment changes all the time. And if you don't keep up with the changes that are taking place in the environment, whether you're talking about technology, whether you're talking about doctrine in war fighting, if you don't train and be ahead of the curve of the changes, then you lag behind. And I think we have perfected in those four areas. And those are the values, in my view, that have allowed us to do what we do, because when we get a task from the Commander-in-Chief, and he says to us, I want you to turn around KMC in the next 6 months. Now, that is not something you negotiate with. You have to do it within that period of time. All you need to do is to get the resources. We turned around KMC with a budget of 650 million shillings. There's a time they had been given 1.5 billion and they couldn't do it. And today, I don't know whether you've been there, you should go there and get
to the one on Landis.
Landis, I want you to go to the river,
yes.
and look at that facility and ask yourselves, really, if you had been there 2 years ago, it's a completely different world, which I think those four areas that I'm talking about are critical.
All right.
Yeah.
It's very important, because you talk about the ills that affect our public service.
Right.
When it comes to these four disciplines, these areas that you've talked about. Typically, what if a serviceman or a person you have entrusted with that job and is in the military mismanages public affairs? What is their fate?
Right. And I think that's again another area that is important, because we have had instances where some of our own have mismanaged. And we have a very clear process of dealing with those kind of behaviors. The Kenya Defence Forces Act 2012 is very clear. If you steal from the public coffers, you go through a court-martial. You have no chance. Because we have two ways of dealing with miscreant behaviors. One, you either go through the summary trial. A summary trial, you appear before your commanding officer or any other person who is senior, or you go through a court-martial. And court-martial, for sure, will take you to jail. And a number of them have been taken to jail. So this in itself is a deterrent for anybody wanting to get into that kind of...
it will not involve the EACC, it will not involve the PCI.
No, it will not involve EACC. It will involve our own people. Our own military police will investigate. Our own lawyers will prosecute the case. We'll just get a judge, advocate from the Chief Justice, Like now we have 4 cases that are starting on Friday of soldiers who misbehaved in the recruitment process, and they're now going to court-martial. And for sure, they will end up in jail because the offense is very clearly investigated and properly prosecuted. And that is in itself very important, so that you are able to bring everybody online. Whether it's the CDF, the CDF can go to court-martial if I make a blunder. Nobody is immune to this, and that is what really ensures that we enforce discipline, we enforce integrity, and we enforce self-commitment.
All right. It's important to talk about probably those soldiers that will be court-martialed because of misbehaving during the recruitment process.
Yes.
Because every time you talk about the Kenya Defence Forces to the public, they always refer to the recruitment process, how it went.
Right.
As the man in charge, how would you assure the public that this process is above board, and even the ones that will come after will be above board?
Right. They will be above board, and I think it's important that they be, because what we are having currently in our society is that corruption has become a societal menace, and this is true that there are people within the Kenya Defence Forces who have been involved in those practices, but then we cannot solve it alone. We have to be able to combine forces with the other actors, because civilians also do pretend to have the capacity to employ people, and they ask for money. You heard of a case of somebody who came from Kajiado with about 13 recruits that have gotten letters that are fake, and bring them all the way to the recruitment center. Now, on our end, and I think we have agreed to change the policy. Initially, we were dealing with these vices through a summary trial. Somebody would just be fired, dismissed from the service without benefits. Now we are taking them to court-martial. As we speak, there are 13 of them who are lined up for that court-martial. And that has sent a very, very strong signal across the entire force, that it doesn't matter whether you are an officer of the rank of a colonel, a brigadier, you will be taken through a court-martial process, and you're going to go to jail. There's no you lose your job and you go to jail. So a deterrent measure that during this particular recruitment that took place, those that were caught up are going to go through it.
All right. Let's talk about the management of public affairs, just like in the MES, KMC, rehabilitation of the Siwatoni port, the Kisumu port. Are we likely to see more engagements with the KDF when it comes to issues of public affairs, other than what is in public or what we already know?
I cannot say that there will be, but as I said, we are ready to do any job. We join to undertake any task that we will be given by the government through the Commander-in-Chief. If the Commander-in-Chief today says, I want you to go and undertake some work, in a particular environment that has got serious challenges, we will do it because we have the capacity to do it. Inherently, we have all the capacities required. Whether you're talking about doctors, we have doctors that are now, we've taken some of them to the Ministry of Health. We have a brigadier and a full colonel who've been working there now since the COVID started. And in my view, there is nothing wrong by employing the military for good reasons. You are not paying extra to the military to do the job at KMC. You're not paying extra for the engineers to do the railway. Neither are you paying extra for the marine engineers from the Navy to do the Kisumu port. So basically, really, the government is utilizing its resource. This is a huge resource here in the military that has been brought about because of you, your taxpayers. Why don't you why don't you use it? It happens everywhere in the world. I just came back from Pakistan about 2-3 weeks ago. And exactly what we are doing is what they do. They build roads, building a road from Kashmir down to the southern part, 1,000 kilometers tarmac road. Why can't we do that? We should be able to do that. And we're looking forward to do it in the future.
Quite interesting.
Right.
You talk about the number of experts you have here, because it is a well-known fact that KD has some of the best engineers, some of the best trained doctors.
Right.
And now I'm into the aspect of revenue generation.
Right.
Is there a plan within KDF to use these experts for the sole purpose of revenue generation?
Absolutely. In fact, what we are doing currently is looking at establishing Ulinzi construction company. And because we have these engineers, and what we needed to do is to ensure that we are able to undertake tasks in areas that are conflict ridden. For example, if you give a task to a contractor, like now we are doing, the government is doing the road from Hindi all the way through Ijara to Garissa. Now, the contractor, the civilian contractor, can never be comfortable to undertake the road construction because of the insecurities. And therefore, we have had to provide security for them to undertake that road. What would happen if we had a construction company that is managed by military people? They will not need to be protected by anybody. They will do the job, and it will be cheaper for the government, because you will know that we are working on this border fence from Mandera all the way to Kiunga using contractors. And what we have looked at and seen is that we can do it ourselves at a cheaper cost, much faster, and we'll also be providing security in the same areas. And this has happened again, as I said, even in the US, the US-Mexico border, the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan done by the military. These are areas that we can be able to work on. Now, if we do generate revenue, isn't it good for the government? I think so. Instead of us just becoming a consumer of budgetary resources, why can't we utilize that capacity to generate?
Contribute to the budget, yes.
Right now we are working on, as you know, we are producing dehydrated vegetables at Gilgil. The Gilgil Food Processing Factory. Recently, you saw us taking tonnage of them to Mozambique when there was this volcanic activity. These are areas that I believe, because we have already attained self-sufficiency in dehydrated vegetables. Our soldiers in Somalia, in Boni Forest, consume these products. We also generate employment, because these vegetables come from farmers around Nakuru, Nyandarua. So it is the best thing to do. It is the best thing to do, including the Kenya Shipyards Limited that was recently commissioned. You know, there are two of them, one in Mombasa, one in Kisumu. The amount of boats that this shipyard can make for fishermen in these areas would be great. Instead of fishermen having to use canoes that are not safe, we can be able to generate a lot of these boats for fishermen around inland waters and also the Indian Ocean. And to look at that broadly, then you're looking at the national defense becoming a public good, a good that people will, identify themselves with moving forward.
All right. Quite an interesting one. Ulinzi Construction Company. Is that on course? Have you already begun?
It is on course. It is on course. We have already had it registered, approved by the National Security Council. We are now in the process of getting the relevant equipment, because the idea here is to separate what we call combat operations. Combat engineers. We have a combat engineering brigade in Nanyuki. What does it do? It does provide combat engineering support to the fighting force, opening up roads, bridges, digging water, in the bushes there, and we have this construction mainly focusing on horizontal constructions and vertical buildings, you know. And the idea is also to make use of the National Youth Service. As you know, the law provides that the National Youth Service is our reserve. The National Youth Service is meant to be the reserve. Today, if we went to war and we wanted to generate more soldiers, we would go to the National Youth Service to be able to get the youth to be able to undertake training for them to go to the front. So we think very seriously that making use of these young people will also create employment for them. Because today, when the National Youth Service graduates commissioned from Gilgil, they have nowhere to go. So we need to create avenues for them to be absorbed within this kind of infrastructure that we are creating. Yeah.
I think generally the public sees the military generally from the aspect of combat.
Yes.
You know, the people we send to war, the people who defend the territorial integrity of our country. So how would you respond to those who are saying the government is slowly militarizing public service?
I think they are off the mark. They are off the mark to the extent that if you think at it from a very broad perspective, there is nothing to militarize. For example, look at NMS, where General Badi is, and he's been there, and he's done a great job. He's been able to fall back on us, the military instrument, to support him in areas that he has had serious challenges. For example, they never had any vehicles there that were running. We use our Kenya Army electrical and mechanical engineers in Kahawa to go out there in their workshops, turn it around, and we were able to come up with over 200 vehicles for him. Now, is that good for the Nairobian or is it bad?
It's good.
I think it's good. And the idea really is to also transform the culture, the working culture, the ethics of the people that we are working with. And I believe, in my view, looking at what is happening at KMC, the civilians there were very apprehensive when we came in because they thought we were coming there with orders, we are coming there to beat up people. No, we are not. We are coming there to be able to get them to learn that you can actually become much better. And I see a situation whereby once you have transformed that culture, it is very easy for that culture to be adopted into the future. If you look at most of the companies in the Western world, in the US, military officers who are either retired are the ones who lead them, and for good reason, because the culture and the work culture and the work ethics in the military is very particular. You know, we come to work at 6 in the morning. We have to work, not hang a coat and go. You have to be here and work and put in as much time as you can to be able to deliver effects. So I think that is what we are trying to do. There is a sense that a number of Kenyans are very happy with what is happening, but there are those who are hell-bent on continuing the bad ways, who would want to use this militarization as an excuse for the military not to deliver.
All right. Let's talk about the pride of Kenya Defence Forces. We have a first, Major General, a lady in Kenya, and of course the number of lady officers that you promoted to the level of brigadier.
Right.
Is there any other country in the Commonwealth that has, such honors, in the sense that we have the first Major General, a lady?
Right.
Yeah.
No, they are there. They are there in the Commonwealth, in a number of countries within the Commonwealth. They are lady Major Generals. And yes, we were lucky to be also in that pack. I know, for example, in Australia, there is a lady general who was commanding forces in Lebanon. UK, they're there. South Africa, particularly in these specialized fields like medical, they're there. But we are lucky that our Major General is a general staff officer, a service officer. She is a combatant officer. trained from a cadet up to the level that she has reached. As you said, we now have 4 brigadiers who've just been promoted in legal, commanding the International Peace Support Training Center. And I think moving forward, we see a number of them coming in. They are now maturing into the senior positions that I think will allow them to get into the higher positions as well. Yeah.
And I'm also aware that Major Steplin Nyaboga won the UN Military Gender Advocate of the Year 2020 award.
Right.
Which of course puts KDF at an elevated position when you compare to other disciplined forces.
Right.
The issue of gender always crops up, and I think you've seen that particularly cropping up in the police force.
Right.
How would you say probably, and explain to us how the military is faring in terms of gender elevation?
I think gender elevation has been taken very, very positively within the military, and for good reason. We have a number of areas that various gender can work. For example, the male gender in the military is highly combatant, and these are the people that you want to go to Somalia for good reason. But there are other supportive areas that the female gender can be very useful. For example, in areas of surveillance, operating surveillance systems, areas of information systems, areas of supplies management. They are very, very important. And because the force cannot fight without these aspects, we have realized that we need to mainstream gender. And we started by developing a gender policy. And I think we are the only military currently in the continent with a written gender policy that focuses on mainstreaming gender into decision-making processes. So Nyaboge has done a good job, and by the way, she's from my corps. She's a signaller, so I'm very, very proud of her. The other issue is that you must be aware of the UN Resolution 1325 of the year 2000 that requires that gender mainstreaming be done across all sectors. So her working in the UN and ensuring that she became the top has put us also in a very good position, because we have the gender policy. We are mainstreaming gender, as you see, the ladies that we are bringing into the force. We just promoted close to 17 full colonels, ladies, in the last promotion. And these are the ones that I see personally in the next few years when you're out of this place. They'll be very senior. You never know. One of them could actually sit as a CDF. Yeah, it can happen.
All right.
Yeah.
There are firsts, obviously, when we talk about our Kenya Defence Force. Talk about our global ranking, because it's very important that probably Kenyans appreciate how we rank in terms of our military might.
I think ranking, in my view, from a military perspective, is something that you cannot be able to quantify, especially from a military point of view, because then you need criteria. You need to say, for example, do you become strong because you have many soldiers? Within the region, for example, there are countries that have got more soldiers in terms of numbers than we have. Does that make us weak? I don't think so, because we use force multipliers. We have equipment that can perform much more than having a very big force, and therefore you need to look at the construction of the forces. You could have South Sudan could have so many 100 militias, 100,000. Does that make them strong? No. You need to look at the training, the professionalism of the force. You need to look at the equipment that the force is using. And therefore, I would say that we are not in a position that you can say Kenya is number 6 or number 5 or we're in a position where we can be able to actualize our mandate effectively, based on our professionalism, based on our equipping, based on our training, we are capable of executing any mandate, whether that mandate is a conventional war or a symmetric war.
All right, CDF, talk to us about the National Defense University, Kenya, that has been awarded a charter by President Uhuru Kenyatta just recently.
Exactly.
And I'm interested in the curriculum, being offered in this university, noting that there are people who also come from outside Kenya to come and study there.
Yes.
But equally, why is it so special, the National Defense University, Kenya? Yes.
Right. Thank you very much indeed. The National Defense University Kenya, as you might know, is a specialized university under Article 24 of the Education Act, and specialized to the extent that it will not compete in any way with the local universities that are offering degrees to undergraduates. The university also will not admit students who have completed O levels directly.
Okay.
Unless you're coming in as a cadet.
Oh.
Because we are recruiting cadets now from Form 4 students who have just completed, and also we have a master's, a degree, first degree program for cadets. So we have two types of cadets now. We have those who are coming in with a degree, who are training for 1 year. Then you have these youngsters who are coming from all levels, who will do 3 years. Now, it is therefore a very specialized university on that sense. On the other sense, it is going to offer specialized programs focusing on defense and national security. The National Defense College that has been around here for over 10 years would be one of the constituent colleges as a constituent college of that university, offering a master's degree and PhDs in national security and strategy. And then you have a defense staff college also in Karen that has been offering a program on postgraduate studies in defense and strategy from Nairobi University. Now the university will be offering that to our officers and those who come from other countries. And also in future we might want to be admitting also journalists like yourself to come and train and focus on those areas of national security and strategy. We will also have a bachelor's degree, 2 bachelor's degree offering colleges. One is the one at the Kenya Military Academy that I'm saying trains cadets who are coming in from O levels and those who are coming in from universities. And we'll be offering from this university a bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Science degree in defense and security studies, a bachelor's degree. Then we have a Defense Forces Technical College that is in Embakasi, which is going to be offering a number of courses on diverse areas, aeronautical engineering, information systems, civil, mechanical, all of them will be offered from there. You must be aware also that we are establishing a level 6 hospital at Kabete, where we are going to have a college, a military college of medicine, again offering medical related degrees. And these are people who will be coming in from within this country who are practitioners themselves, or from outside the country and who are practitioners. So it doesn't therefore conflict with the local universities. So we therefore, for example, when I got my master's, I got a master's in international studies from Nairobi University. Anybody now from next year, when we start the program next year, will be getting the degree through the National Defense University, where the president and the commander-in-chief is the chancellor. The vice chancellor has just been named, Lieutenant General Mwangi, and I happen to be the chair of the council of the university as the CDF. Right.
All right. Where's the farthest in terms of the other officers who come from outside other countries to come train the National Defense College and the people who will come to the National Defense University Kenya?
Yes.
Where's the farthest?
In terms of studies?
Yeah, in terms of where these soldiers have traveled from to come in.
They go from very far. Right now we have, as we speak today, we have students from Pakistan. We have German students who are officers who are there, from India. We were expecting one from Britain, not for the COVID. We also send our students there. Right now, when I came from Pakistan, I got slots for officers who are now leaving to go to that university. The Colonel here is just leaving in the next few days to the UK to what they call the Royal College of Defence Studies, which brings together not just military but civilians from across government and also from industry, people who work in industry. And that's where the meeting of minds takes place at the strategic level.
All right. Let's talk about the Operation Lindanchi in Somalia. How are we doing so far?
We are doing okay, I have to say, because as you know, we've been around there for 10 years, end of this year, after 2011 when we got in. And 20 years has been a long time. We have achieved tremendous successes. Successes, one, in degrading the threat. Because the threat of Al-Shabaab, as you know, when we started this fighting, was quite a menace, even to us in the country. It was quite a menace. And therefore, the indicators are very clear that the threat has been degraded. Has it been eliminated? Absolutely not. There's still a lot of work to be done. And what has happened over that 10 years, the countries in AMISOM, Kenya being one of them, the 5 countries, have gotten to a point where they've done a good job. But we need to move from what we are currently doing to undertaking stabilization. Stabilization meaning we need to start having the Somali National Security Forces themselves taking the war that is remaining under the tutelage and mentorship of ourselves who are there. And for good reason, because there is no way we are going to be there forever. But we can't leave until the conditions are right, because the gains that have been made for these 10 years will be lost. So what has happened is that the United Nations Security Council has initiated a process of re-engineering and restructuring AMISOM. Okay? To the extent that AMISOM today is majorly a military force. But what you need now is to bring in other dimensions. You need to bring in civilian actors who are going to construct schools, who are going to do health centers, who are going to do roads, because there are no roads out there, who are going to bring water to the people. And that is critically important. Thirdly, is that AMISOM has been funded through a very strange system where the European Union provides the resources to the African Union through a bilateral arrangement. But what has come out now is that this mission must be taken over by the United Nations Security Council and becomes a UN mission, okay? So that it has predictable funding, it has predictable capabilities that will be able to deliver the final successes for Somalia. It is in our interest as a country to have a stable Somalia, because if you have an unstable neighbor, you will never go to sleep. You'll always be awake. So we are very, very keen to support that effort. We've had engagement with the UN security teams that are doing this, the African Union, and we are hoping that by the end of December, a decision will have been made on how AMISOM will be reconfigured into a multi-dimensional force, a force that will be able to undertake the tasks that we undertook ourselves when we went to Sierra Leone, okay, where a force had all these capabilities to be able to ensure that you hand over the responsibilities to the government of Somalia.
The question of predictable funding is something, it has been President Uhuru Kenyatta's clarion call in most of the international meetings that he has done.
Yes.
And again, bringing in the question of people who argue the war or the Operation Linda Nchi is costly to the Republic, one in terms of costing, in terms of funding, and number two, in terms of the soldiers we have lost inside Somalia.
Yes, I think there is no doubt that war is costly in whatever character, in whatever form. War is costly. But it is costlier and catastrophic not to engage in war. If you have been pushed to the corner where the country employs the instrument of last resort, because the military instrument of national power is the instrument of last resort. Having tried diplomacy, negotiations, you as a country decide that this is the last instrument. Now once you engage in it, it is important for people to understand that it is going to be costly, both in human life and in the economy. But it is costlier if you don't engage. For example, if we didn't have troops in Somalia, if we didn't have troops from Mandera to Kiunga, we will not be sleeping. Or they will find us here in Nairobi, isn't it? Nobody wants that. You want to fight them as far ahead as possible, so that you can let the country develop and continue, with what we do. And that is why I was saying that we have some of the finest soldiers in this KDF who undertake a lot of work in those areas to ensure that the country is not, peace is not disturbed. And I'm very, very personally very happy with the troops that I normally visit very often. They're doing a great job.
All right. Yeah. As we wind up, let's talk about the Elade attack. 6 years on, roughly 6 years on after that very horrible attack. Without going into the tactics or the tactical efforts that you're putting.
Right.
What has the KDF done to ensure such a horrible attack doesn't happen ever again to the soldiers protecting this country inside Somalia?
I think it's also a good question, and I think it's important for Kenyans to also know that this was one of the worst attack that we have suffered as a KDF, and we have had to relook at what could we have done better. Okay, and that is the essence of having a force that is on a continuous learning curve. And what has happened is that the enemy has been mutating to the extent that when we got to Somalia, the worst that we could get from the enemy was IEDs on the road. There was no time that we had experienced a vehicle-borne IED. Okay? And therefore, when this vehicle-borne IED came, which caused a lot of damage, we realized that we had to rethink and be ahead of the enemy. And this happens all the time with war encounters. And therefore, force protection became one of the major areas of engaging in. I came in as the Army Commander at the time, and we made sure that all these forward operating bases were hardened. You have to harden them. Harden them to the extent that this vehicle does not get a chance of intervening into the into this facility. And therefore, and I think you can attest to the fact that since Elade and Kolbio, which came together almost at the same time, we've not had those kind of things, and we will not have them. Secondly, we have continuously worked on how do you ensure that we are ahead of them all the time. Today, they're using drones to carry IEDs, which they can come and drop on yourselves. So what does that tell you. You have to be able to look at how do you harden your, overhead protection
from aerial
attacks. So there is a continuous learning in this engagement, and I can assure you that all these lessons that we learn, we translate them into doctrine. We take them to training institutions, to recruit training school in Eldoret. We take them to cadets, and so that when they leave those institutions, they are already attuned to what would happen. So yes, it was a terrible attack. Did we learn from it? Absolutely. And we are now better placed than before.
All right.
Yeah.
There have been claims that they're prisoners of war out of Elade attack. And I think you've seen one family in Trans Nzoia that is still talking about their kin that is still in Somalia as a prisoner of war. First of all, have you received such claims that they are prisoners of war after the Elade attack? And secondly, are there efforts to repatriate them back to the country? Yes.
I think it's a good question you're asking, and we've had to see these social media events. But I think it's important for the people to understand that in war, what you have is missing in action. Because, for example, when the attack took place in Elade, in the manner that it did, what happens is that the cohesion of the force breaks, isn't it?
Yeah.
People break, they go different directions, and therefore within that melee you get people who will be missing in action. Either those people are dead, or they've been injured, okay, or they've been taken captive. And therefore you cannot be very sure to say that you have a prisoner of war. Okay. So what we've been doing ourselves is to ensure that we interact with the local people, okay, to try and get to understand whether we still have people in Somalia who have either died, because even if they're dead, we have the responsibility of getting them out and bringing them back. So we take this as propaganda, which really is intended to, one, demoralize the Kenyan people, and secondly, to also demoralize the fighting force. So yes, we have had instances where we have people missing in action. Okay, but are we doing something about it? Absolutely. What we are doing is classified for good reason. Yeah, but we are doing something about it.
All right.
Yeah.
As we wind up, because the name of this segment is Extra Mile. What does General Robert Kariuki Kibochi, the Chief of the Defense Forces, do when he's not in his office or when he's not discharging the duties of CDF?
Yeah, I think the CDF really has also to get out there and become a Kenyan.
Okay.
And the CDF, as I said to you earlier, comes from a farming area of Nyandarua.
Yeah.
So CDF does the farming. I love to see cattle around, and you know very well that Nyandarua has got the best sheep. So if you happen to pass around, you'll be able to see the CDF doing exactly that.
All right.
Looking at cows and sheep and things like that.
All right.
Secondly, the CDF is a grandfather. So I've got two grandchildren. So I also have an opportunity to stay with them when you're not in the office. Thirdly, the CDF loves to keep fit. I think all the Kenya Defense Forces people know that they have to be fit to be able to be mission ready. So we normally run with my soldiers. When I get time, I go to a unit and we just have a run with them, which I think is a good thing. They also get to understand their CDF as a person who also can do some things that people think he's an old guy, but he still can do it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was easy. You've been talking to the Chief of Defense Forces, Robert Kariuki Kibochi, the man in charge of our Kenya Defense Forces. Keep watching KBC, because indeed Kenya is watching.
Asante sana mpenzi mtazamaji, mahali popote unanitizama. Kwa majina yanajulikana kama Mutumishi. Asante Yesu. Oh yes, na hapa kwenye Quickbit kumbuka tunakuambia ni bidhaa bora zaidi kwa bei ya chini kwa chini kwa chini. Na kila siku ni bidhaa bora tunapeana. Tuko na